Hi, Faye. Hi, Nick.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear us now? Oh, can
Yes,
you?
very well.
Oh, good. Lovely, lovely. Nice to see
Oh,
you
we'll
again.
just be same here. It's a delight to see both of you, and really long to wait for the whole year to see you this time of the month around. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's amazing to see you. We'll just wait for 2, 3 more minutes while
yeah,
people are
certainly.
still joining in, and then
Right,
we'll begin.
Excellent. Thank you.
okay. Mm. It's becoming quite cold here in Melbourne. We've had rain all day today, and it's 9 p.m., almost 9 p.m. here. So, mm,
Quite late.
mm.
In India, it's getting very hot. Rather, it's 42 degrees here. So it's very hot.
Oh, wow. Mm. Do you have humidity there too?
Humidity is it's mostly during the monsoon time. Not right now. It's very dry and hot right now. But another month's time, yes, it's going to
Mm,
be moist.
mm. I like it when it's dry and hot, I have to say.
We always like what we don't get, actually.
Mm.
True, yeah. So by the time you finish, it's going to be almost 11 for you.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Gotta get that to begin. Oh, there we go. Good.
Okay.
Lovely.
We've almost more than 100 participants now. Another minute to go, and we'll begin.
Okay, that's
No
fine.
problem.
Yeah. I request all the participants till then to please put on your, rather switch on your videos, everyone. So the energy doubles when we see each other. I think let's begin now.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. Star Education is thrilled to host another insightful workshop, this time featuring a truly special session led by none other than the authors of Fitzroy Reading Program, joining us directly from Australia. I am Shifali Juneja, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, here are a few quick norms to help us stay focused. All participants must remain on mute during the session to maintain focus and minimize interruptions. The chat box will be activated as the session progresses. We encourage you to actively participate by sharing your thoughts and asking questions. At the end of the session, we will share a feedback form link. Kindly fill out that to receive your certificate of participation. As 2025 unfolds, Star Education proudly continues its mission of empowering educators across the globe. We believe that learning is a daily habit, not just an annual event. That's why we bring you workshops that are enriched in content, rooted in research, and ready to transform your classroom practices. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, we are honored to welcome the authors of Fitzroy Reading Program, Faye Berryman and Nicholas Berryman, joining us from Fitzroy Community School in Australia. Hi, Faye. Hi, Nicholas. It's always a delight and something we're truly looking forward to have you with us around this time this year. Each year, your warmth and wisdom have become a cherished part of our learning journey. To begin today's session, here's a thought to hold close. When we teach children to decode, we just don't teach them to read words, we give them the keys to unlock the word. Faye is a co-founder of Fitzroy Community School and the principal author of the Fitzroy Readers. With decades of experience, she has pioneered the Fitzroy program, a structured phonics-based program that has shaped the literacy journeys of thousands of children across the globe. Nicholas, a passionate educator and the co-author of Fitzroy Readers, is equally dedicated to make phonics practical and empowering for teachers. He plays a vital role in sharing the Fitzroy method with schools worldwide, helping educators implement it effectively. Together, Faye and Nicholas will take us through the principles and practices of the Fitzroy method, demonstrating how it builds strong foundations in reading, spelling, and comprehension. So sit back, my friends, stay curious, and get ready to be inspired. So let's begin, and the stage is handed over to Faye and Nicholas.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's lovely to be here again with you. We believe that some of teachers are coming for the first time, and that others have already been with us in the past. And I think both are wonderful occasions. It's always exciting to hear something for the first time, but I think when you're hearing something for the second or third time, you probably gain a little bit more from it anyway. I agree with what Shefali said. The early years are very, very important, and establishing the framework of what your students are doing is crucial. I always think the first couple of years are probably the most important, if you have the opportunity to start then. So, okay. So tonight, thank you very much for your warm welcome to both of us. We're delighted to be back sharing our journey with you and our wonderful product. We're just having a little bit of oopsie. Sorry, no, here we go. So in today's presentation of the Fitzroy Readers, we're looking at systematic synthetic phonics and a definition of this term and how phonics works. The Fitzroy method, and we're looking at that and its system and structure, the first steps that we advise taking. We'll look at the first readers in this first session. That's 1 to 10, 1x to 10x, and then a little bit later, the 11 to 20.
So Fitzroy readers have been a major influence in the reintroduction of phonics into Australia, and they have been classroom tested since 1976, when I was actually a student at the school. And they're now used worldwide for teaching of English as a foreign language and English as a second language.
Just a minute, Nick. We're very proud of that, saying that we were the major influence, because in 1976, if you think about it, phonics was not particularly popular. But right back there, where we sat with the children and saw with them how most quickly they learned to read and write back accurately, we realized that phonics was the way to go. And so we have worked consistently since 1976 to have phonics as an honored method. And I think now we have it that way.
So the underlying philosophy of the Fitzroy method is that when we speak, we make sounds, and that hearing comes first. All children learn to speak well before they learn to read or write. So English is an alphabet with 26 letters that are 26 written symbols, and all alphabets follow a similar system. When we write English, we use these letters to write the sounds that we speak. And that's all that words are. Words are just the sounds put together. And writing is a way of doing that. English has 44 spoken sounds. So what do? Well, we have one letter for the basic sounds of the alphabet, and then we combine two or more letters to make extra sounds. For convenience, we call this digraphs, even if they are technically trigraphs, if they have three. Anyway, we like to use just digraphs for convenience. And learning to write means learning which letters to write for the sounds that we speak. Words are just sounds put together. So when the children hear the sounds or repeat the sounds and then they write them down, they're able to put down all the words that they hear spoken.
When you're teaching little ones, 4, 5, something like that, I always find it's nice to say, when we write, we're actually putting our talking onto the page. So this is what we're saying. We learn the sounds, we learn to put the sounds together. That's what synthetic means. And when we do that, we write words. And that's very exciting for them, very exciting.
And English has the convention that we go from left to right. That is just a convention because other languages use right to left or even top to bottom.
We think that this particular screen that most of you are looking at now is essential. That's really the underlying philosophy of phonics systems.
So the Fitzroy readers prevent the alphabetic principles of English in a logical sequence, and that's important. For the children to make sense of it, it has to be sequential. We proceed in finely graded teaching steps. So it's a very systematic system that just puts layer upon layer upon layer, and the children can build their knowledge while really consolidating what they already know. It starts with the basic sounds of the letters because that is the most important step. The children need to know that each letter has a basic sound, and then we introduce the digraphs gradually and logically in a way that allows the children to grasp them one by one and to use each one before they progress. Through the readers, we progress to more advanced spelling rules while integrating the special words. These are sight words that the children will never be able to sound out, and English has a number of them. The program also covers all of the grammar that the children need and provides lots of different activities, especially writing activities of different text types, so that they become very familiar with using English in a number of different styles that they will need as they progress. And if the program is taught well, we guarantee literacy excellence.
When we first began, we simply called it phonics, but now you will find that the terminology is systematic synthetic. And of course, as Nick pointed out, the systematic means that you are proceeding in finely graded steps. This is very important. It's not just something here and something there. It's a carefully worked out system, and it's therefore systematic. And of course, the synthetic means you're putting the sounds together to make the words.
So as we've probably made clear, phonics just means sounds. And any alphabet is a phonetic or phonics system. And the alphabet, therefore, is just a sound code, a code that's used to put down the spoken words onto paper, with each letter of the alphabet standing for a particular speech sound. So as we said, English has an alphabet with 26 letters. Each letter represents a sound, and a word is made up of sounds put together. That means when we're teaching reading, we're not saying D-O-G, we're saying D-O-G. And the exclamation mark there is just our way, for convenience tonight, of showing you that we're sounding it out. D-O-G equals dog. And for children, the names of the letters are really secondary to the sounds. We do play little games with the kids by saying, oh, look, what's that animal? It's a dog. Does it say dog? No, it says wolf. Well, in the same way, the letter D, its name is D, but it says D. So we give them just a tool to understand that you can have an animal called a cat, it says meow. Or an animal called a dog, it says wolf. You have a letter called A, it says A. And the children can grasp that concept fairly quickly. So This is just a couple of pages, but you can just see when we're reading pig, we just read p-ig, pig, k-at, cat, put them together, we get words. And the children, by being able to do this quickly and simply, feel a real sense of accomplishment. So English, as we said, 26 written symbols, 44 spoken sounds. What is the solution? Well, the solution is to come up with combinations, digraphs, which are two or more letters put together to represent different sounds.
Nick, I think that's really important. It's the two letters put together are not like st, but they represent a different sound. And I think this is really important to understand. So a digraph is two or more letters put together, making a different sound from the independent letters if they're said quickly.
So you can see at the bottom, English has about 60 common digraphs, and we've written a few examples there. So A and R, it's not at, it's R. C and H is not kh, it's ch. EW says oo. So the sounds change, and the children have to learn these combinations and read words, putting them together as R or ch or oo. And that way, they're able to decode very quickly. As Faye was saying, they're not blends. So blends have words like splat, but the spl, they're not different sounds. Spin, brim, glad, and all the other blends we have there on the screen, the sounds of the letters have not changed from their basic sounds. Whereas a digraph is new information. It is a new sound. So O is not O and O, it's oo. OA is not O and A, it's O. And the children have to see these digraphs as a letter grouping with a new sound. So systematic synthetic phonics is just sounding out the words. What the synthetic means is putting the sounds together. Words are sounded out according to the phonic rules. Sometimes they're just basic sounds like k, at, t gives you cat. But a lot of English words have a combination of basic sounds and digraphs. For example, f or k, fork. And sometimes English is just digraphs. The word each is just e, ch, the two digraphs put together, or arch is just arch, the two digraphs put together.
Yes, the reason we need the digraphs, of course, is you can't make 44 sounds with 26 letters. So, and unfortunately, we have 60 digraphs where you might say we only need 18, but that was because of, well, no internet, even no transport, no telephones when the first sounds were being put together. So people on one side of the English-speaking world came up with an idea, perhaps EA is a good way of saying E, and on another, hundreds of miles away, that EE. So unfortunately, this is the only little wee issue. We have 60 digraphs, but sometimes there's a double up.
This can also allow English convenience. The EE for E, EA for E, we get words like see, I see you, and I swam in the sea. So it allows us to actually distinguish between words that have the same sounds. So phonics, once the basic sounds are learned, is quite easy. Larger words can just be sounded out. So goblins, or at wombat. And then we have slightly more complex words, like the ones on the page, where we do a for sh, crayfish, ing, starting, moonlit. And again, these complex words are sounded out, except they're sounded out using the basic sounds and the digraph sounds.
We'll have a look a little bit later at what we call some games, some good ears games, but you find that the children love this. You might start off saying, what word am I saying? Cat. And they'll say cat. But then as they get better, they say, give me a hard one, give me a hard one, give me a hard one. And so you try and think up like a word like wombat or picnic or something like that, because they get very excited when they realize that or a word like drink, drink. they love that, and you know, as they get better and better, they want you to play the game with harder and harder, well, harder in the sense that there are more sounds in the word.
Yeah, the longer words feel great to the children, but all we're doing in all of these activities is getting them to listen and listen carefully and to hear and distinguish the sounds, because that's what allows them to spell well. So English is, according to experts, between 90 and 95% phonic. Now, when you're reading English, there are a number of very, very high frequency special words. The word "that" is an example, or "was." And these are what we think of as the most important special words. So English, the blue part of the pie there, the majority, is phonic with these 50 very high frequency special words added in. And the readers incorporate these so the children have access to these words. So if you have a sentence like "the cat was on the mat," you can see "that" and "was." The cat was on the mat. That we have twice, "was" we have. So these words are, you know, they are special. You can't sound them, but they are frequently repeated. And our readers will incorporate that so the children have no trouble with them. The problem with, I guess, the two approaches, the whole word approach versus phonics, the problem with whole word is that children do not have knowledge that they can apply to words they haven't seen. If you look at the two words on the page here, we've had children who've learnt from the whole word or a sight approach, and we teach a phonics or a sounding approach. And if the children know the first word is chicken, but they've learnt with the sight or whole word approach, they can't read the bottom word chin, which is much simpler. But if they've learnt to sound ch, I, k, e, n, chicken, then they can take those sounds and go ch, I, n, chin. And they can read both words. And you'd think if you can read chicken, you can read chin, but someone with the whole word can't, because they haven't learned it as a separate, sound components. So they just look, oh, one word's bigger, one word's shorter. They're not the same. I don't know what to do. We want the children to be able to have knowledge that they can take and apply, because most children will have a greater oral or spoken vocabulary than they will a written one or reading one. So we want them to be able to take the knowledge they already have and apply it well.
I think it's important to understand what the big debate has been about, because for many, many years, whole word or whole language was the fashionable one. So really, as it says here on the screen, the debate is about looking at a word and recognizing it just by sight or by sounding it out. So it's simply that. The debate is sight versus sound, and it appears that these days now sound has won.
So this is just to show you, English has a number of students, they say 5% for who reading just seems effortless. And what they've worked out is these kids are lucky enough just to be able to work out the rules for themselves. And 35% who learn to read pretty well with basic instruction, broad instruction. But you end up with about 60% of readers, the 40 to 50% there, who need code-based, explicit, systematic, and sequential instruction. And then you have 10 to 15% of students who are often termed dyslexic, who have a lot of trouble learning to read. And without this code-based, explicit, systematic, sequential tool, they actually never learn to read well or to spell well. What we try to do is provide a reading system, a reading method that gives this systematic instruction so that all students have access to good English, not just the ones fortunate enough to grasp it themselves.
I think it's also, we have found now, because we've been at Fitzroy Community School was founded about 50 years ago. So we've been working on this, and we've actually discovered that the children who start with us, and right from the time as in a beginner's group, you teach them, left to right and to sound out from left to right. We find very few cases of dyslexia. And I think that is really important because it's a matter of training the brain to go left to right, and also start at the top, go left to right. Once you get to the right, come back to the left. And really, there's no, if you look at a picture, there would be nothing to tell you to start in the top left-hand corner. So it is a matter of training the brain. And I think you will find too, for the people who are lucky enough to start with a beginners group, that these children, there are many fewer cases of dyslexia, which I think is a wonderful bonus, actually.
If you are putting the sounds in the right sequence, you can't actually put the letters in the wrong order. So that's the thing about sounding out. If they're sounding them out in the right sequence as they say the word, then the spelling will be correct.
Okay, so the systematic synthetic phonics, teaching this is just a revision of what we said, teaches the basic sounds systematically, teaches the digraphs. Then we cover formal rules by which English is spelt, and we treat irregular spellings as special cases, words like who and you, which we're using all the time.
So this is just to show you that we do actually have a teacher's guide to the Fitzroy method, and the page on the right just shows you basically our structure, where each reader will have a digraph that it's taught. So reader 51 there, you can see the AU or the OUGHT saying ought in reader 52. Now we're going to go through the earlier readers in this training, so you'll see the ones that the earlier readers do. We also start, of course, with the alphabet, and we have an alphabet chart. You might notice that the lowercase letters are taught first, and they're put in the place on the left, because when children read, the majority of what they're reading or when they write, the majority of what they're writing are the lowercase letters. So these are that's our starting point. And we ensure that our alphabet chart has et for egg or it for insect. We don't do things like ice cream under I, because that's saying I, not it. So we're really focused on those basic sounds.
I think Nick mentioned this, but certainly what we read is basically in small letters, lowercase. And we have found by concentrating on these first and then adding in the capitals on a need-to-know basis, like, for example, the beginning of a sentence or a name, you don't have the children muddling up a word with some uppercase letters and some small letters at once. So doing it this way seems to avoid that problem.
So to teach the alphabet, we have the Fitzroy alphabet book, and we also have the Fitzroy sounds, which is has a little page with each letter and audio to help the children to sing along to the sound, so that they really gain familiarity with the sound of each letter.
We find that different access into the brain, like singing, some children love to sing. In fact, this is very popular in my beginners class. Singing along is very, very popular for the tiny tots.
And when we're writing, we try to have the simplest method we can. English really has 3 different types of letters: tall letters like T, short letters like all the vowels, and hanging letters like G or Y. So we have these positions with the short letters between what we call the roof and the floor, tall letters going through the roof, and hanging letters hanging through the floor.
And that's the terminology we use in the classroom.
So the first synthesized words that the children get actually come at the back of the alphabet book, where we're teaching them that things like O plus N gives you on. And the children are learning to read and learning the system of left to right by reading basic things like a cat on a table. And the only word they're really having to put together or synthesize there is on, because the others are done by pictures, but it gives them the concept of reading from left to right, and it's also their basic introduction to synthesizing sounds. The first reader, a fat cat, actually only requires 13 letters. The idea behind this is that children read as soon as possible. So what we do is we teach the letters necessary to read this reader and then get the children reading. And Those 13 letters are the largest amount of abstract knowledge that the children will need to learn before approaching any reader.
And we do this because the children come to school thinking they're going to learn to read. And so it's very important to get them going as quickly as you can, because of course, success leads to success. And we've just finished our first term of 9 weeks here, and all our beginners can now read, and they're very proud of themselves because they feel they're readers, and that's very important.
So the teacher's guide also has inside it these little, what we make into letter flashcards. And we use these to really help the students gain familiarity with them. So we can just take them, copy them, cut them out, and they have an at card and a b card and a k card, et card. So the children are able to quickly just take the cards and practice the sounds.
It's really interesting. You can think you give the best lesson in the world, and then the children really, they need constant repetition to remember. So most of my classes start each day with showing them the flashcards and having them put up their hand and identifying what sound that letter makes.
And as Faye said, we teach the capitals on a need-to-know basis. So the children learn the lowercase letters first. You can see here that the capitals are taught on sheet 10A. That's at the end of the first word skills when we're nearly about to complete the first set of readers. And up until this point, children have only learned capitals when they need them. We're teaching them, when do you need them? At the start of a sentence or the start of a name, you need a capital. Otherwise, it's lowercase. You're starting a sentence. What letter do you need? What's the name? What letter do you need? And we'll teach them the capitals. And this helps a lot with punctuation. The children aren't putting capitals randomly anywhere because they're only writing them when they need them, and they're always thinking about when they need them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we think that our system is wonderful for getting the most out of the child. We have games, creativity. They know that when they learn their letters and their digraphs and know how to put them together, plus 50 words, they can really just about read anything. So it's a very concrete experience. It's a pleasurable experience because all children are capable of learning this way. And of course, reading for life, not only do you have mastery, but you have joy. And so that's what we're going for all the time. The pleasure that comes from being able to read, and also the confidence you get when you know that you can read accurately.
And by having it in a sequential, systematic way, it's very finite. We learn this bit of knowledge, we can read this reader. It's very simple for the children, and they always feel success.
It's also very simple for the teachers, so that's a good thing too.
So this is an example of good ears. We play this, and Faye will play it every single class with the younger ones. So what word am I saying? And the children go, run, hop. And we're getting the children to listen to the sounds and put it together. And that's, for some of them, the hardest step with reading. They can sound out k, at, t. Learning how to put it together, often we say it faster, k, at, k, at, k, at, k, at. And they go, cat. But this is where the children at the start need the most practice. So the more good ears games you can play, the better.
Words like trot and drop, also the tr and the dr, that's getting them to realize that there are two sounds there. That's very important. That's very important for accurate writing. And that's why we do a lot of training good ears, because if you can hear the sound, you can then write it correctly.
Yeah, so these blends, sometimes we also get them to sort of go t, r, t, r, t, r, t, r, tr. And we're showing them how the t and the r come together to make tr. It's not a new sound. That's what we call a blend, but it is important that the children understand that tr is just the two sounds put close together.
Mm-hmm.
Number ears is getting the children to think. If you say jog, how many sounds? J, j, o, g, o. That's 3 sounds. Jump, j, a, p, p. And hearing that p jump, they'll often at the start say 3. And you say, really? J, a, p. Jump. They say, no, jump. Oh, j, a, p. Making them hear all the sounds is important. What's interesting to note for this is a word like book actually only has 3 sounds. It has 4 letters, but the sounds are b, u, k. At the start, the children haven't learned all the letters. They don't know the number of letters. We're just getting them to listen and hear the sounds.
I was just going to say a word like fantastic is something they want harder, harder, harder. Well, that has nine separate sounds. So that's a very good one for the children who want a harder word.
They do love a challenge and just learning to count them. And in this day and age, I think every child knows about recycling, and we show them that English, all we do is have 26 letters and recycle them. So t, et, and ten can become n, et, net. Act can become k, at, cat. We're just using the same letters recycled into a different order to make new words. And that really shows them how finite the knowledge they need is to read a lot of words.
Usually on day 1, I bring in a very big book, say like Harry Potter, and I might say to them, how many different letters do you think are used in this book? And of course, they'll say 1 trillion or 1 million or something like that. And when you say just 26, that is an eye-opener for them, and they realize that this is something very special, that they're learning how to put the sounds together in different orders to make the number of words in an enormous book like that.
We use games like this one, the windmills, where we're putting a vowel in the middle, and we can make words using the outside ones like p, et, and pen, h, et, and hen, m, et, and men, t, et, and ten. I also vary this one sometimes by putting 1 consonant on each side and 5 vowels in the middle. So they can go p, at, pat, p, et, pet, p, it, pit, p, ot. And so they get to sound it out using all the vowels instead, because the vowels are also essential.
I think it's these games are in the teacher's guide. So anyone's wanting to have a check at what we've been talking about, you will find all of these in the teacher's guide.
And we also have a card game. It's like the game of Scrabble in a way, except if you look at the screen, you can see that certain cards will have 2 or 3 letters. They'll have the digraphs. So if you want to make a word like start, you need st, start. It's also color coded so you can see the digraphs. And the children learn that they learn to use the digraphs really well by having to apply them. These cards are also numbered so that you don't take out the digraphs the children haven't learned. So the children, you can add more and more cards as the children gain greater knowledge.
I remember when Nick was teaching in Taipei, his children love this game, and so they challenged Philip. Philip and me, and of course we were the creators of the game, but they were so good at it that they beat us at it because they had just become very, very fluent with their digraphs and using them to help them put the words together. So that was an eye-opener for us.
It was great because they built up a really good storehouse of knowledge of sort of 5, 6, 7 letter words using the digraph. So when they found one, they could always think of a whole range of words. So it also increased their vocabulary by playing with this, but their spelling became excellent. So for the first readers, before we start, what do we need to do? Well, before reading any reader, we need to teach the special words and the reading rules. And then we also should mention that we have readers 1x to 10x, because the X series is what we found was most necessary. A lot of teachers and a lot of schools asked for extra practice at the early stages, the basic levels. So for that reason, the X series was written. We're also going to go through how we'd conduct a class and show you the word skills books.
So up to now, we've really given you the theory behind what we're doing, but now we're actually going to show you how we use our system. So here, book one is a fat cat, and you can see that we're going to concentrate on the letter A, making the sound A, as in cat. I have the children look at the back of the book and simply say that today we're looking at the letter A making the sound A, as in cat. We learn it almost like a mantra. And then the indefinite article, the one-letter word, which is written with an A, we actually teach it as A. Now, if in normal English speech you say a fat cat, but we try to avoid the children thinking that the A, the indefinite pronoun, indefinite article, is an because otherwise they will write a word like lunch, they'll write with an A because they think that the is an A.
A can easily be confused with you making the sound if we teach it that way. So from the start, it's somewhat artificial, but we always say A when it's by itself. Oh, it's a naughty vowel. It says I'm A and I'm going to stay as A. I'm not going to say my sound. We always try to have a little story that makes it memorable for them. So, special words are words, they're special cases of spelling. They're words that children will never be able to sound out as they should be sounded out. However, every special word still has some phonic clues or some part that does follow the rules. So if you have a word like was, at the very least it's starting with a w, or go is starting with a g. And what we do tell the children is it's usually the vowels. If there's a problem with the word, the exception usually comes from the vowels. As you can see here, very special words like I, you, of, and laugh can never be sounded out. Never, ever. Whatever the children learn, they're still going to not be able to sound them out. So these are the ones that they just have to learn. But by calling them special words, we give them a positive loading. The children don't think of them as difficult or hard. They're special. Even though it's special case, they think, you often hear them say, I'm good at special words. And they're very proud of the fact that they can do these special words. Not so special words is what we do when we need to use a word with a digraph, but the children have not learnt the digraph at that point. As you can see, the 2 circled there, that's reader 7. They haven't actually learned OO is oo. That comes in reader 9, only 2 readers later. But because we needed the word to, we teach it. We do tell them, oh, look, OO says oo, but don't worry too much. We're going to have a reader. But the children love the fact that they've already gained a pre-taste of the knowledge they need, and they'll be able to apply straight away when they get to reader 9.
This is another example here. We're looking at my as a special word, but then in reader 13, making the sound I.
So again, the children get the pre-knowledge, and then they get to do it again. And we've found this is something that was worked out over the 50 years of Fitzroy Community School. Teaching something and then revisiting it as many times as possible helps the children to remember.
So here we're having a look now at, this is reader 5, and you can see the special words. We have 2 of the 50 here that we think are essential. Reader 3 had 2 of the earlier ones. So we're looking at was and to. And the B page over here is using those particular special words. They're the fill-in ones.
So the B page is always the page we use, every single reader. The B page is always the special words page, and it will give a lot of practice of those words. You can see the children get to practice with frequency so that they'll remember them.
We should say that I think we might be saying this a bit later, but we always do the A and the B sheets before we read a book, and that gives the children much more confidence because they've already looked at the abstract knowledge they're going to need, and the text uses that abstract knowledge.
And that abstract knowledge is always placed on the back of the reader as well. So we do the A sheet and the B sheet. A sheet is the sound, B sheet is the special words, and then we also look at the reader and the back where it's repeating those things. So the children have had multiple times to come to that knowledge before they read it, and that empowers the children to read the reader by themselves.
Which, of course, it gives much more pleasure if they're not struggling with every word.
So reader 11, you can see here has the special words are, you, and who. Sheet 11B, the B sheet is the special word sheet, and it gives a lot of practice of those words. You can see we've also added in question marks here because the children are now understanding punctuation in sentences. We've used full stops. Now we're adding in questions. We also insist that the children learn concepts like spaces between words. Now, you can tell children things like this till the cows come home, but they often don't think it's necessary. They write it down and expect the teacher to read it, whether or not it has spaces. If you give them an exercise like this one in 6XD, writing with spaces, and ask the children to read the sentence and then write it out with spaces, they often struggle. I have a fat cat often works quite well. Then they get to the second one and you get the big pig sran. And you go, what's sran? Takes them a while to, the big pigs ran. The S is on pigs. And by having to spend this time working it out, they do come to see the value of spaces. So the first readers, we sound out the words first. Cat, we repeat as a whole word, cat, and we have the children placing their finger under the words as they sound out, cat. We are not guessing. We do not ever guess. The children have the knowledge they need, so there is no guesswork. A lot of methods say, just have your best go. We say, no, we're actually going to give you the knowledge you need so you don't need to guess, because guessing is a dangerous habit to build. So reader 1, we have the 13 letters we need, and then we can read A, cat, A, cat.
It's important to see here that the text is consolidating what we've said. If you remember the back of the book, we said that we're looking at the letter A making the sound A as in cat. So you'll notice all the words here have an A in them.
And also the special word was a, the indefinite article, so pages will also have that. We'll keep reading. A, at, mat, a mat. A, at, rat, a rat. And this goes on through the whole reader. We're just sounding it out. Doesn't matter if I skip through, we're sounding it out. I'll read page 10. I read page 9, sorry. A, at, fat, at, cat, and, a, at, rat, at, sat, on, a, at, mat. A fat cat and a rat sat on a mat. And we're just getting them to read it out all the way through to the end.
And we are consolidating the knowledge in their minds that words are sounds put together. Some people say, well, if they can read it, why would you bother sounding it out? Well, we're sounding it out simply to consolidate that knowledge, because when they come to write back, they need to write back in the sequence they hear the sounds.
And it also builds that automatic mental process. A lot of activities we do, like driving a car now, we might not think about it. But when we learnt, we had to think about putting the car into gear, using the clutch. We had to think about looking in the mirrors, everything. Now you do it automatically, but it's only through repetition and practice that it becomes automatic. And we want the sounding to become automatic and done so quickly that the children can look at words and almost not realize that they're sounding them out. So the Fitzroy word skills are workbooks that have grammar, comprehension, spelling, games, and activities. And we've already seen a few of the pages. The A page is always our rule. The B page is always the special words.
I think it's important to say that certainly we find that if we use the Fitzroy word skills in conjunction with the reading books themselves, you get much better results, much better results.
So as we said, the A page, you can see we're practicing at as in cat, A making the sound at as in cat, and the children have to complete these words, and they're always saying the word, sounding the word, tracing the letters, and then writing it in. And we do talk about writing and starting at the start. So when they're writing the A, it's coming back up and around, doing it in the correct way. The B sheet is the special word, the indefinite article A. A, and can, A, can. And again, they're doing the writing, but here they're always sounding it out and reading it with the practice that they need for the special word. The C page, at this point, is just completing words because they don't have much knowledge. And the D page is the start of their composition. So we've practiced a lot of the at in the A page, but at, cat, what's that? It's a cat. I can hear that we need a T. So getting them to think of the three sounds and identify which one is missing. Writing, they're getting the idea of putting it together to make sentences because this is what they need when they're going to write greater stories. The E page, we always give them a word find. Now, it's essential that the children do sound out the words, read the words first before they find them, because they can often find them as a pattern, but we're trying to get them to practice reading. And that activity down the bottom is showing them different fonts so that they can read. Doesn't matter if they read one book from a different source, they will be able to understand that these letters have a basic shape, and even if it's written in a different font, it follows that basic shape.
Mm-hmm.
And we also always give them a...
Did we look at the F page then, Nick?
Sorry.
I don't think we did. The F page, well, we love this exercise. Getting the children to think beyond the text. The subjects for discussion are, for example, we'd say to the little ones, would a cat and a rat normally sit on a mat together? Because, of course, in this story they've just read, we've got a cat and a rat sitting together. Well, of course, they wouldn't. And they'd love to make up just what would happen. And so that's very good. And later on, as the readers progress, some of the subjects for discussion are quite sophisticated, and you get some wonderful thoughts from the children. The next exercise, a fat cat sat on a, well, they can remember Matt, but later on when the words are much more complex and more of them, they practice scanning. And scanning, of course, these days is such a crucial exercise. So this is really the beginning of scanning. And then down the bottom there, it's a literal comprehension. For example, who sits on the mat first? Well, the cat does, if they're remembering the story. So we just get them to write cat in that box there, but we get them to answer in a sentence, to take answers in a sentence. So who sits on the mat first? The cat sits on the mat first. This is very important for later on when we're after the first sets, we ask the children to write in full sentences. So this is practicing orally writing, speaking a sentence, which later on they will use. But of course, at this level, they can't really write full sentences, and so we just write the one word answer.
Also, it also gets the children to focus on the question. Who sits on the mat first? The cat sits on the mat first. And they understand that the question itself will help them to structure the answer and provide most of the words that they need. And sorry, I skipped to this before, but the G page is getting the children to write the words like a cat and then also to draw it. And for some children, drawing is just such a joy, and this gives them greater access to the English that they're learning.
Mm-hmm. No,
Sorry, we should say that once we've finished Reader 1 and the activities in the word skills, we return to the alphabet book. the children will need to learn 4 additional letters before they read Reader 2. You notice that there were 13 letters to read Reader 1, but there are only 4 more letters at this point before they can read Reader 2. So they actually feel like they're progressing more and more quickly. That is less abstract knowledge. The 13 letters for Reader 1 is the greatest amount of abstract knowledge they need to learn at any one time. And this is just showing you one of the alphabet book pages, the J for jug, that the children are learning. And you can see on that page, we're very clear on our structure. J is a hanging letter. We go downwards. We come down from the line where the star is. We come under the line and give the tail, and then we add the dot up above, and they're numbered to help the children. We're learning the correct way of writing because later on when they're learning to join the letters, if they're not going in the right stroke order, it's going to be very, very hard. So this helps them with their writing later on. We have pictures like the jug. We look at the picture, we say jug, we look at the word below, and we circle the J. So the children are able to sound it out. They're also able to identify and circle the letter. We get to practice writing J under the jacket and under the jumper. We get them to practice doing that quite frequently. And then at the bottom, we have some sentences where the children are listening and they're following along as you read. Put the jug with the jam, ah. So they're getting to listen. Put the jug with the jam, jar. They're really listening for the j. And then when you've read it to them, they go ahead and find the j and circle it. So they're practicing identifying the letter again.
Mm-hmm. And now in this Reader 2, we're looking at the vowel I making the sound I as in pig, and we're simply revising our special word, the indefinite article a.
Because that is essential knowledge they need. So again, that knowledge is put on the back of the reader, the I as in pig. There is no new special word. And just to give you an example to show you that the system stays the same, when we're reading it, we read a, b-ig, big, p-ig, pig, b-it, bit, a, f-ig, fig, a big pig bit a fig.
And repeating that the text is going to consolidate the abstract that we've learnt, that we're working on the letter I making the sound I as in pig. And so most of the words in this early reader have the I sound in them.
The same thing happens with Reader 3. The A sheet has practiced the as in bug, the sound they need, and Reader 3 you can see has 2 special words, 2 of our 50 high frequency special words, the and of, and that would be practiced on the B sheet, and then the children are able to read it. H-ug, hug, the, b-ug, bug, b-at, but, n-ot, not, otten, on, t-op, top, of, the, r-ug, rug. So we're showing them that we're sounding it out, but the special words we say because we can't sound them out. So they're getting to see and hear that as they read. Reader 4, as in dot, no special words. And again, you can see that the text there practices the sound that we're learning. It also has the earlier vowel sounds, and it also repeats the special words like of, because that's what the children will need to consolidate the knowledge, those 50 high frequency special words.
And you can see that we've got the girl's name is Dot here. So now we have a capital D, but where on the back of the reader, we're looking at the letter O making the sound O as in dot, which is a dot like a full stop symbol. So getting them to notice that there can be 2 dots. There can be dot a name, but dot a mark. And that's important too.
Often for something like this, we might put just a little dot on the board, and I might draw a girl. And I might write the word dot with a lowercase d next to the dot I've put on the board, and write the name dot next to the girl with a capital D, so the children get to see the difference. Mm-hmm. Again, Reader 5, this is the 5th of our 5 vowels, as in hen, and we saw the sheet before. the B sheet, it has the special words was and to. That knowledge is always repeated on the back, and the reader will provide practice of those, or of the sound and also of the special words. Reader 6, reading with no new rule, no new sounds for that, but just practicing the 5 vowel sounds that they know.
And we also have the special words I and have, which are not all that special, I suppose you might say. But with the word have, they're learning an important fact about English, that an English word cannot end in V. And therefore, if the sound is V, that's okay. But you must remember to, in writing, to write the letter E.
So we call that a silent E. It's not actually doing anything. So also the word I, we teach them when it's I, first person, pronoun, it's always a capital. This is just to show you reader 8. You can see that the text is already becoming much more complex. Here we're learning about quoted speech. So this is in their first set of readers. They're learning about quotes, and they've also got the special word said. So they will be sounding out in the same way. The p-ik-n-ik. Picnic was for-atten fun, said to-otten Tom, to p-at Pat. The picnic was fun, said Tom to Pat. They're still sounding it out, but they're saying the special words because they can't be sounded. And in each reader at the back, we also have a page words we've used to practice the words that they've learnt, and that can be used as a very quick revision tool. Showing you the progression now, sheet A is always the rule. Sheet 9A is very important because this is the first digraph that the children have learnt. 2 O's together making the sound oo, as in roof, roof. And the children now start really being empowered to read English. They're also empowered to be detectives, to look for these digraphs. If they're reading other books at home or their parents are reading storybooks to them, they can actually start discovering these digraphs themselves. Now, we teach this by talking about the concept of cooking with letters. When you get an O, an O, and an O, and you mix them together, and when you put it in the oven and take it out, you've got an oo. And you can't change it back. And we might talk about cooking a cake or cooking some other food, but you can't, once you've cooked it, take the products back. When you get an O and an O, but you put them together, you've now got an oo, and we can't take it back. And they're looking at the pictures there, they're reading the words roof, roof, and they have to join it to the picture. Room, and they have to join it to the picture. So they get a lot of practice of this new digraph.
And down the bottom, my name is, on the back of the reading book, we've had the special words my and name. And so we're practicing those. And of course, we've had I and have, we have had in reader 8. So we're reviewing that. Like and play also come in as special words in reader 9.
And you can see that the B page also gives you practice of these special words. So we're trying to give as much practice as we can. And that knowledge, of course, will also be repeated on the back of the reader.
And you can see that if you've done this thoroughly, well, then when you go to read the reading book, this is all the new information you need. So you're going to read with much more pleasure.
And just to show you a progression, you can see the A sheet, the rule, the B sheet, the special words. C sheet, now we're forming whole words. We're also using it to practice the digraph, the oo, and we're putting them into sentences now, so the children are always practicing what sentences are. The D page is usually our composition page, and you can see that they have a picture and they have to see it, they have to think about it, and they have to write something. So they might write something like the second picture, the sun is hot, or the dog got hot in the sun. And they're having to think what they're going to write. Of course, they can get help from the teacher with that, but it's asking them to look at a picture and start creating.
And that sense of empowerment now that we are able to use the knowledge we've learned to create something ourselves. And I think that sense of empowerment is very important.
The E page again is our sort of games and activities, the word find and the chasey activity. But the F page is probably the most significant because it's our comprehension page. It tests the children's understanding of the text. And the order that we prefer is the A page, the B page, read the reader, and then we usually skip straight to the F page and do the comprehension right after reading, so the text is fresh in the children's mind. As you can see, there are subjects for discussion. What can roofs be made of? What can walls be made of? What can floors be made of? And this allows some children who maybe don't have the greatest English knowledge but have more practical knowledge to also shine. We have our close activity where we're filling in the gaps. Children can't always remember the answers at this point, so they're already starting to scan texts. And that scanning, as Faye said, is an essential skill. We process so much more information daily now than we did in the past. I think the amount doubles every 5 or 10 years. So the ability to scan through a text quickly and find relevant information is more essential than ever. And again, we have our comprehension. What is the name of the pup in this story? The name of the pup in this story is Yap. Who owns the pup? Emma owns the pup. So again, we're using oral sentences. We're putting the answers into complete sentences, but we're only writing single or 2 words for the space, but we're getting the children ready to write complete sentences from the next set. Again, we have the drawing page just to give the children practice in a different way. And once we've done that, we are ready to go to the letters we need for the next reader.
I hope the teachers now who are listening to us are realizing how simple the method is to use because it always remains the same. We've shown you how it's remaining the same in the first level, but this is true for the whole system. So once you know how to use the method, you'll find it's very, very teacher friendly.
And the X series, as we said, is the extra practice. It's an extension in a way. It's extension and extra practice, but it follows the same pattern. And Reader 1X will have no new sounds or digraphs. It's teaching the same information, the same thing as Reader 1, but in a different and slightly more complex format. It's to reinforce the sounds and the special words. And the order we prefer is to do readers 1 to 6. We haven't had any digraphs at this point. 1X to 6X to consolidate that knowledge, and then go back to the other set, 7 to 10, where we start learning the digraphs, and then 7X to 10X, where we get to practice those first initial digraphs.
We're not actually hard line about this. Some teachers find it much simpler simply to go 1 to 10 and 1X to 10X, but that's a matter of choice. If you actually have the ability and you have all the books, well, this is the order we use. We recommend it, but we as I said, some other teachers find a different method quite as good.
It's quite acceptable just to do 1 to 10 and then 1X to 10X. So as you can see, Reader 4 has had O as in dot. That's the same thing in 4X, O as in dot. What we have added in this one is the letter A written in a different font. And the A you can see at the bottom there is a form that is quite common in many books. It's not the same as the one we did initially. And we start having longer words, but they're still words that the children can sound out. So swim, pond. They have more letters, but it is still just the basic sounding out. And the reader, you can see a page example there, is practicing the same knowledge. The frog, and they can just sound it out in the same way. But it has this one, Reader 4 only had 3-letter words apart from milk. Reader 4 has a greater frequency of 4-letter words.
I'm just looking at the time. We'd better move on quite quickly, I think. But understanding the fundamentals is so crucial. So we have spent quite a bit of time on that. We're looking at the 9X. You remember 9 was O and O making the sound oo. So oo as in roof. And here we have the special words, the same special words repeated. And Billabong is an Australian, it's a sort of like
A water hole.
yeah, a water hole, really, a big water hole. And wombat and possum. It's quite a charming reader, this one.
But again, the children they are longer words, they can sound them out. And Reader 9 has the same 4 special words that Reader 9X, sorry, has the same 4 special words that were in Reader 9. The readers 11 to 20 are when we really start moving ahead with the digraphs. So we're going to focus on how they're introduced and taught and just give you an example of the reader progression. Again, there's a word skills book to accompany them. And that gives the same practice that was done in the first set. The A sheet, to show you an example here, is always the spelling rule. So here in Reader 17A, we have sh. And you can see they're reading the words sh, at, k, ash, sh, it, p, and having to identify which of those words goes with the picture. The B page is still practicing the special words, but the practice, as you can see, has grown slightly more complex, and the children are having to choose out of 3 words which one to choose for the sentences. Looking at the very bottom one on the page, you can see you are butter, smaller, taller. And the children have learnt at this point, ALL says all, so they can read smaller, taller. They've also learnt the ER at the end of a word making the A. So they're practicing the digraphs that they've learnt in the last few readers. But the A sheet teaches the rule, B sheet teaches the special word, and then the children are equipped to read the reader. The C sheet has comprehension here. The children get to read a story and answer questions. You can see it's become much more complex than the original C1. And the D sheet, we're now adding in rules of punctuation and grammar.
Yeah, the D sheets from now on have quite a bit of grammar and the rules for written English. So here are I mean, very important that, you know, sentences begin with capital letters, names of people begin with capital letters, place names, the word I. So this is really important grammatical knowledge. Again, same things with the E sheets as before, but now with the in the F pages, we're getting them to go to their exercise books and write full sentences. If you remember, we were practicing orally, but now we actually ask them to write in a full sentence. And of course, you can't fit a full sentence in that space. So we ask them to go to their exercise book for that.
Again, though, we're still showing them what was the girl's name in this story. The girl's name in this story was Trish. So we're still showing them how to use the question to structure their answer, but they're also learning sentences, start with a capital, end with a full stop. And the G sheet again is still drawing, except now we've added in a writing task. So choosing a picture and writing about it, or taking one of the word prompts and writing about it. So this is where they get the introduction to basic story writing.
And we will be doing, in a couple of weeks' time, we are going to be looking at writing. We will leave that for now, Nick, but we'll talk about that.
And you can see that the next one, again, we have the A page teaching the rule. It's always the phonic rule, the ing making the sound ing as in sing. And the children get to have frequent practice of that rule. Just having a look at the backs of the readers, you can see Reader 18 teaches ing as in sing. You have some special words at the bottom. That's the A and the B sheet. Reader 19, AR making the sound R as in Mars. And we have, again, special words. Some of them, like space, the children haven't learnt the rules, so they're not so special words, whereas others like what, the A's making a sound that it shouldn't be, so it's always going to be a special word. Reader 20, they're learning AY making the sound A. And again, we have some special words, and we also have the titles, Mr., Mrs., which is knowledge that the children will also need. 11x to 20x series is exactly the same as 1x to 10x. It follows or mirrors the 11 to 20s. So there are no new sounds or digraphs. It's just to reinforce the sounds that they've learned and also the special words. We normally just go 11 to 20 and then 11x to 20x at this point. It's just a consolidation set. The text is slightly more complex as before, and so the children are given a slightly greater challenge. The digraphs, though, as we said, well, English has digraphs that have different sounds. So what do we do when digraphs are what we call identical digraphs, the OO? In Reader 9, we learned that OO makes the sound oo as in roof. Now, all of you know that OO also says oo, but we don't teach the two different sounds at the same time because that can lead to confusion. So in Reader 9, we teach OO making the sound oo as in roof, and we wait until a later reader, Reader 16, before we teach OO making the sound oo as in cook. So just by separating out the two sounds, we try to avoid memory confusion. This is just to give you a quick look at some of the other concepts that we teach in the word skills. So we have alphabetical order. Of course, when children need a dictionary, unless they're using and typing in on their phone, knowing the order of the alphabet is very, very important. So we practice things like alphabetical order. We get them used to things like crosswords. We have a pre-crossword where they're just putting the letters in, but we will introduce crosswords as a game, so they need to understand how they work. And for our readers, we do have answer books so that if teachers are not feeling as confident, they have a resource that they can go to give them the answers they need.
So I think, what we've tried to show you today, we'll just have a look at that. We always like to reward. I think children love rewards. So we give a certificate of achievement when they have completed a book. We praise the good work. We don't, we do insist that the book is completely finished and also finished correctly. So we don't say, oh, that's very good when it's not very good. Children come to trust the teacher then, but when they have completed something very well, we give them a certificate and they seem to love that.
But they also know the certificate has been earned. They can see a whole book, and that's a significant amount of work. You're not getting it for nothing. You're getting it because you have put a lot of effort in. And it's really the effort, the amount of work, the effort they've put in that we're trying to praise.
So we must be nearly at the
end. We are at the end.
Yes.
I guess this is just a summary, but we try to make, we really try to have a lot of creative teaching. We probably haven't done justice tonight to the amount of different little stories we make up, but we're always enthusiastic because English is fun, and language, any language, not just English, learning a language, languages are amazing. And if we can bring enthusiasm to our teaching and we can make it memorable, when we teach, we have a lot of funny little stories. When I'm teaching something like the letter I, making the sound it, and they have to remember that it's a short letter, but it has the dot. I'll always wear a hat into class, and I'll tell them that it actually wants to be tall, and I'll be throwing my hat up saying, look, I'm tall. Look, I'm tall. And whenever we teach a letter, we always read a book that goes with it. So if I'm teaching the letter A, making the sound A, I'll read a story like 10 apples up on top. And I'll be reading it like one apple up on top, two apples. And I'll keep repeating the sound, but I'll try to give them an extra memory link through the story, because teaching, if it's not memorable, why would the children bother? So we want you to be creative, enthusiastic, and find ways of making it memorable. And ideas for all of these and a whole list of books that can be used to teach each letter are also in our teacher's guide.
Nick, you just touched on it then, but we do choose a book that has lots of the particular sound we're teaching, like a tiger came to tea for the t sound. And we say to them, if they really enjoy the book, you know, you couldn't have that book if you didn't have that sound. So you give them a reason for remembering the sound, because if they like the story and they know they couldn't have it if they didn't have that sound, well, then they think, oh, the sound must be important. So it makes it sort of a high value letter. I was teaching the letter W last week, and we had a wonderful, actually there was a book called the Widow's Broom, and then Where Wild Things Are, and another thing, a book about a woodman, an honest woodman. And the children love stories, and if they know they couldn't have it if they didn't have that sound, they will then remember the sound.
Names are also great for practicing sounds, because if you have a name like, you know, Ravi, and you're learning about R, and you say, but what happened if we didn't have R? Oh, you'd be Avi. And the children sort of laugh. And we use the names of the children in our class, but thinking about the person whose name starts with that sound, what their name would be like without the sound, they they find it fun, but they also see the relevance of each of the letters. So in a very, very quick summary, we present the alphabetical principles of English in a logical sequence, and that logical sequence is key. We have finely graded steps, so each class is a finite amount of knowledge that the children are able to apply. We start with the sounds, because sounds really are the foundation of everything that we do in English, and that's the basic sounds first, consolidate that, then introduce the digraphs. And as you saw, the 11 to 20 set really starts building those digraphs. And as we progress through, they're getting more and more advanced spelling rules. We have the special words integrated throughout, with a focus on those 50 high frequency special words. Throughout the program, we cover the essential grammar that they need. Now, of course, 11 to 20, we haven't covered it yet, but by the end of the series, we've covered the essential grammar that the children need. And we've found over time that we can actually guarantee literacy excellence if the children do the readers in the sequential way while accompanied by the word skills.
Yeah, so next week we'll be going on with the higher levels, and you'll see how the system remains the same, but also you'll see the very good standard we get to. And then the week after, we will be concentrating on writing, and in that you'll see a lot of the fun things that we do.
So there's just a few testimonials, but we tried to leave a little bit of time now for, I think, a few questions. We normally answer some questions at the end.
Yes, you're right. All right, thank you so much, Faye and Nicholas. I have a few questions there. I'll just read out the questions. And teachers, those who have not written the questions, please write the question in the chat box so that we can ask the authors. All right, whoever was waiting for reader number 21 or 30s, it will be covered in the next week. So it was mandatory to attend this session first, because that the basics are covered here. And then the next level is covered next Friday. So
this evening, we were actually trying to show you the system and like the fundamental concepts. And so we needed those to be able to go on, but certainly from next week, it will be 21 on.
Yes, thank you so much. So next week, 21 onwards, we'll do the readers. I have one question. I'll just read out to you. How can teachers balance Fitzroy readers with other classroom reading materials?
I think other reading materials are great. I never, ever tried to limit the children to just reading the Fitzroy readers. But that said, a lot of the other materials aren't done in a sequential manner. So finding the right time to introduce them, or explaining to the children that there will be rules that they don't know. I remember teaching my 4-year-old class in Taiwan, and some children came up to me very excited, and they said, Teacher Nick, did TH TH makes th, right? And EE makes E. And I looked at them. I went, I haven't taught you that. How do you know that? And they said, oh, but you read us the Three Little Pigs. And they'd gone and listened to the story, and then they'd looked at it and they'd gone, oh, E. And they'd worked it out. Now, they had learned a couple of digraphs like OO at that time, but we hadn't learnt TH or EE. But I'd said to them, you guys are detectives. You kids are detectives. You know now that they're digraphs, so you can look out for them. So the way I incorporate them is saying you won't be able to read everything. If you can sound it out, if it's a basic word and you know it, that's fine. There will be rules or special words you don't know, but you can actually start discovering a lot of them. And to have 4-year-olds doing that in Taiwan was a joy.
And I think we're just saying how the importance of all these stories. They cannot read the whole story, but you're not going to be a good reader, a good writer if you don't hear good stories. So good stories, I don't know if that's particularly answering the question, but always good stories that don't have to be exactly in line with the standard of the Fitzroy readers that you're reading at that time.
That's true, and I understand. But in the curriculum that we have in our schools, we do have other reading materials, and children tend to, try and, decode the, special words also, and
Yeah.
that's where somewhere it's a situation where they're able to read the word, and most of the time they're not able to read the word. So
I know
that's
you
where.
touched on this, but I think it's really important when the children are trying to decode words that are probably special words, to realize that the issue is often with the vowels. And in fact, we the creative part and the fun part, I always put it up, and we just say, oh, those naughty vowels, what are they doing now? So if they start to realize that, okay, there'll be cues in that, and the vowel might be what's causing trouble, they can decode much more readily.
And we teach them funny little things. I often say, oh, when O doesn't behave, it normally sounds like ah. So you get words like come, some, glove, love, mother, brother. Oh, so if O's not behaving, try ah. Because when O doesn't behave, it usually sounds like ah. So we're giving them as many tools as we can to approach this.
Yes, thank you so much. Another question that I have in the chat box is that uh, if grade 2 students or higher grade students are only aware of the sounds, so is it necessary to read like k, at, or we can directly make them read cat?
I think yeah, by that point, we are usually starting to read with greater fluency. If I'm going to say, oh, maybe I'll just get them to sound out the words that have the rule we're practicing. So we might only be sounding out one word every 2 sentences. We are trying to build them to that reading where we're saying, okay, we're just thinking the sounds in our head. But what we're doing is we'll read with as great fluency as we can. If we get to a word that we're stumbling on, then we stop, we sound it out, and then we progress with reading. So the sounding becomes a tool that's used when you're stumbling on a word, but it's not used for every word.
I think we should have said that we don't, obviously, as the readers go along, the first set, we're probably strict about that at first, but even in the higher levels, no. But of course, once we get a bit beyond the 1 to 10, well, then we never sound out every word. We assume by that stage that the children photographically, I suppose, go left to right and know their sounds.
In Taiwan, what I often did was read the first page or maybe 2 pages sounding and then the rest of the reader. And we just read. But I really wanted them to almost have that programmed in that we are still sounding. So we'd just do 1 page with that just to get that in their mind and then read the others. And I found as a second language thing that worked very well.
I think it's important. The sounding is for accurate spelling. That's why we concentrate on that at first. It's that once they can listen to the sounds and get that right, they will be good spellers. If an interesting thing is, I've also discovered some children seem to read photographically right from the start, but they are often not the ones who are the good spellers. The ones who actually work at it a little bit more and need to work it a bit more often finish up as good or better than the ones who have quickly just learned to read fluently. So this is why, even if they can, we like them to sound out with the beginner readers, just for spelling, actually.
Fair enough. I totally get your point, because at uh, for shorter words, children generally use a photographic memory, and the teachers don't even come to know, are they reading? Are they decoding, or they're just reading from the photographic memory? Yes. So I think what you're saying is right, that they must try to decode and then read. And once the teacher knows that they are able to decode, they can straight away go and read clearly. Yeah, I got your point. Surely. Thank you. Somebody has asked about the recording. All the webinars that we do are, uploaded on a website. So maybe in a day or two, you'll find this recording there. For your teachers who have missed, share the videos with all of them. So there's another question that says, how can we create interest in reading?
By sharing, I think sharing stories. I share, like for every letter, we share a story. We do a lot of also poems and poetry. And as the children get older, I will read novels with them. I will read to the class. And if I'm lucky enough, I can find a class set of the novel so the children can actually follow along with their own copy. So this week with my grade 3 and 4 class, I'll be starting the book, The Wizard of Oz. But we try to share a lot of literature with them. I'll also get the children, when they're able, to read books themselves and give a short report. Like this week, I read Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. It's about a boy who discovers he's a wizard and has to go and goes to a wizard school. While there, he realizes an evil wizard is trying to come back and has to try to stop him.
Yes, I think, a love of reading is promoted by the children seeing the joy. I think if a teacher loves books, I think having access to good literature, and the teacher has that, I think there's a wonderful poem. I think I'll bring it along next time, about this little girl who was listening to a story and suddenly realized the wonder of words. And it's the most beautiful poem. I think she was an African American, and she didn't really think she was much good. And she suddenly was listening to a story, and she actually became a poet, because she had listened to a story that she loved.
I think, and it's hard to say this sometimes to parents, but they also play a crucial role. If parents don't read, children struggle sometimes to see the value. So I also put a lot of pressure on the parents to read and say to them, like they say, oh, but I read when he's in bed. I say, oh, that doesn't help because he's not seeing you read. You need to read with your child. You need to share books that you loved, stories that you love. So I think parents do play also a crucial role in this. If schools can get parents involved, that will help.
That's sometimes not as easy as it sounds, of course.
Yes, you're right. We have to guide our parents also and teachers that they must read with them, spend time together, sitting on our chairs and reading together.
Yes.
But if you can have stories incorporated into part of the class, that's the best, I think, for teachers.
Yes.
And we love poetry here. There's wonderful anthologies, and often, you try and do a poem that might fit in with a story that you've read. I'm talking about the ing sound. There's a very funny poem by Spike Milligan called On the Ning Nang Nong. Whenever I'm doing reader 18, which is the ing, I always do the poem. And really the only reason Spike Milligan wrote it was because he loved the sounds and he was just having fun. So for the children to realize that writers sometimes write just to have fun, that's a good thing too. That's a very good stimulus.
Yeah. All right. I have another question that's, I think, for me. Do lesson plans come with the Fitzroy readers? Yes, they're recommended lesson plans that comes with the Fitzroy readers. If you don't have it, just get in touch with us, write to us, and we'll provide all the lesson plans to you. There are a lot of resources that comes with Fitzroy, and we provide everything to the schools.
And a lot of them are also in the teacher's guide. So if they have a copy of the teacher's guide, they can use it.
Yes. So you just write to us and we'll provide. And I think that's all for today. As always, it's a wonderful session. Always, always actually. And a heartfelt thank you to all the educators, leaders, and literacy enthusiasts who joined us for today's session on reading, Decodable, and the Fitzroy Reading Program. Thank you, participants. We are grateful to the Fitzroy authors for their time, expertise, and passion in sharing the journey of the structured reading instruction that works. Together, let's continue to empower every child to become a confident reader, one sound, one word, and one book at a time. Once you learn to read, you will be free forever. This is a quote by Frederick Douglass. So thank you so much, everyone. And we plan to see you next week on Friday at the same time, where we'll be covering the higher grade readers. And after that, there's another session. So there are 3 sessions together. First one was today. The next session is for the higher readers. And the last session is for creative writing covered in the Fitzroy readers. So looking forward to see you all in the next 2 sessions also. We had good 500 participants today. So thank you all the participants. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Nick. It's
Pleasure.
always lovely to see you.
Look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. So I still have to share the feedback form link. My colleague is just putting in a link in the chat box. All participants need to fill that form to get the certificates.
Okay.
The feedback forms are in the chat box. Just click the link and fill the feedback. Those who have already filled the feedback form, I may request them to leave.